Welcome to the Depth Dive. Today, we are injecting ourselves directly into probably the most complex, maybe the most corrosive economic force in the entire wasteland, chems.
Yeah, we're really tearing open the history books today, looking at old pre-war logs, even some pretty gruesome recipes.
All to understand the origins, the different variants, and the just staggering socioeconomic cost of this whole post-apocalyptic pharmacopoeia.
Maybe we should start by defining the term itself for you, the listener. Chems. It's just wasteland shorthand for chemical, right?
Right, basically any substance you can consume.
Exactly. Could be a stimulant, maybe a steroid, sometimes a hallucinogen, or even something to boost your brain power, a cognitive enhancer.
But the key thing, the thing that ties them all together, is that they give you a temporary boost. A performance edge, maybe an escape, maybe a tactical advantage in a fight.
But, and this is the crucial, but those effects are almost always, balanced out by something nasty, a negative side effect.
And top of that list is usually addiction, crippling addiction.
Absolutely. It's this landscape, this pharmaceutical world that's so chaotic, so bizarre. Only someone like Dr. Mobius could really capture it.
Ah, Mobius from The Big Empty. Yeah, he had that great line, didn't he?
He did. He said, so many chems, such varieties. Whenever I take Mentats, I can feel my entire chassis breathe like a big spherical lung.
That kind of weird, almost painful euphoria.
Yeah, that really sets the tone for what we're diving into today.
So our mission here is a deep, deep lore dive. Like an archaeological dig, almost.
We're tracing these substances from way back. Secret pre-war military labs, maybe cynical corporate HQs.
All the way up to the desperate, sometimes homebrewed stuff made after the world, burned. Stuff cooked up by self-taught chemists in ruins.
And we need to grasp more than just the chemical effects, right? And it's about who controls the supply, how that shapes conflicts.
Exactly. Why chemistry, weirdly enough, is often the real currency of power out there in the wasteland.
Okay, so to understand this whole chem ecosystem today, we got to look at split heritage. It's not all wasteland bathtub chemistry. No, not at all. You've got substances that survived the Great War. Things like Med-Tek, Buffout, the whole Mentats line. These are like chemical ghosts from the old world.
But then you have the really revolutionary stuff. Often pretty grotesque post-war creations, things that didn't exist before.
And this is where you get this really bizarre transfer of knowledge happening. I mean, some of the most famous post-war chems were invented, or at least popularized, by groups like the Great Khans.
The Khans, the ruthless drug runners.
The very same. But here's the twist. They learned their basic chemistry, the fundamentals, from the followers of the apocalypse.
Wait, the followers? The, humanitarian group, the ones trying to preserve knowledge and help people.
That's them. Sounds completely contradictory, doesn't it?
Yeah. How does an organization like that end up, fueling a drug epidemic?
Well, it speaks to the whole ethical gray area of knowledge itself, maybe. The followers are academics, they're medics, they teach science anatomy, chemistry, sanitation as neutral tools, things you need to rebuild society.
Okay, I see. But once someone learns that scientific method,
They can apply it to anything.
right?
The Khans took that chemical synthesis knowledge and, well, they didn't use it to cure diseases. They used it to refine and mass-produce street drugs. They turned academic science into the engine of a criminal empire.
Wow, okay. So that kind of transfer, that background, it leads directly to this really fractured, sometimes hypocritical approach to regulation across the wasteland then?
Totally. How the big powers, the NCR, the Legion, how they treat drug trafficking, it defines a huge part of their whole societal structure.
So let's take the NCR first, the New California Republic. They're trying to be like the old world government, right? Law and order.
Exactly. So for them, trafficking chems is a major crime. The NCR Army, the Rangers, they actively enforce this. And their laws are surprisingly sophisticated. They focus a lot on the intent to produce.
Intent to produce, what does that mean in practice?
It means the Rangers know that certain ingredients, things like turpentine, antifreeze, weird fungi, they can have legitimate uses, crafting, repairs, whatever. But if they find you with a large quantity of those specific precursors, or maybe they stumble onto a mobile chem lab, they can infer your intent. They assume you're planning to cook chems.
And that's enough for an arrest.
Often, yeah. And because of this, the dealers get clever. They use caravan companies, maybe independent couriers. They break up the supply chain, ship small amounts of ingredients separately to avoid suspicion. They basically outsource their logistics to legitimate businesses.
Clever. But what if you get caught dealing inside the NCR military?
Oh, then the hammer comes down hard. The penalties are Draconian is the word. Sources say drug dealers within the NCR military face severe consequences. Often it can mean death by firing squad if they're convicted.
So the NCR is serious about keeping drugs out of its own ranks. They see it as a threat to discipline, to operational readiness.
Absolutely. It undermines everything they're trying to build.
Okay, now contrast that with the other extreme, Caesar's Legion. Their approach is simpler.
Brutally simple. Zero tolerance. The Legion strictly bans all chems. And this is where they're fundamentally different from the NCR.
Not just the illegal stuff, then.
Nope. They ban everything addictive. That includes things the NCR considers normal, like stim packs, even alcohol.
Why? What's Caesar's reasoning?
Caesar sees any reliance on chemicals for enhancement, for pain relief, as a weakness. It compromises a soldier's purity, their dedication. His army is supposed to be hardened by suffering, not softened by drugs.
Doesn't Caesar himself use advanced pre-war tech, autodocs and things, for his elite?
He does, and that's a key contradiction, right? It highlights the Legion's strict hierarchy. The average legionary can't even use a stim pack for a broken leg.
But Caesar might gift an autodoc, this super advanced automated medical station, to one of his favored commanders.
Exactly. The elite get access to high-tech healing, avoiding the prohibited addictive stuff that Caesar believes corrupts the rank and file. It maintains that rigid power structure.
Okay, so that's the post-war situation. But if we look back, this whole demand for performance enhancers, it wasn't just a post-apocalyptic thing, was it?
Not at all. Pre-war society was already wrestling with black market pharmaceuticals. We have pretty chilling evidence of this.
Where from?
The wreckage of Skyline's air flight in 1981. Investigators found a hidden compartment, and inside, a manifest.
What'd it list?
Smuggled chems, weapons, a significant amount of cash. This wasn't just a few pills changing hands. It was an organized black market operation, running before the bombs dropped.
Wow, so the foundation for the wasteland drug trade, this huge demand for risky, high-reward chemicals, it was already baked into the old world's consumer culture.
Deeply embedded, which sets the stage perfectly for our first really big category, the core stimulant, the absolute poster child for post-apocalyptic addiction. Jet. Jet. Everyone knows Jet. Powerful stuff. Hallucinogenic, stimulates the central nervous system like crazy.
Ubiquitous, devastatingly addictive. And its origin story, that's one of the biggest ongoing debates in the entire lore. Okay, let's unpack that conflict. For a long time, the story everyone knew was that Jet, the really potent, infamous version, was created after the war. Early 23rd century.
Right, by Myron, this kid, genius chemist working out of New Reno for the Mordino crime family.
That's a great story. Wasteland ingenuity, desperation, all that.
It is, but then conflicting evidence turned up. Specifically, a pre-war log found in a Vault-Tec terminal.
And what did the log say?
It clearly stated that 15 cases of Psycho-N-Jet were shipped to Vault 95 during its construction phase, pre-war.
Okay, so how do we square that? A pre-war Vault-Tec stock list versus the Myron story. Did Myron lie? Or is it something else?
Well, the consensus among lore fans now leans towards nuance. It's likely that a substance called Jet existed before the war. Maybe a less potent, maybe even a legally regulated amphetamine.
Like a generic stimulant.
Possibly. But Myron's formula, that specific recipe, is what created the notorious, devastatingly addictive strain that defines Jet in the modern wasteland.
So maybe he didn't invent Jet from nothing, but he invented this Jet, the bad one.
Exactly. He might have stumbled on a unique chemical reaction using available wasteland resources. Or maybe he refined some existing pre-war chemical contaminant into something much, much worse.
Okay. Whether he invented it from scratch or just refined it, the recipe he ended up with, it's genuinely horrifying and completely unique to the wasteland.
It really is. Jet, the drug that fueled an epidemic, it's derived from the fumes of mutated Brahmin fecal matter.
Just saying it sounds awful. Brahmin dung fumes.
And this is where the story gets into, well, grotesque economics. Myron didn't just invent this in a vacuum. He approached the Mordino crime family.
Why them?
Because their existing drug operations selling peyote cacti they farmed was inefficient. The high was too mellow, lasted too long, he slowed down their profit turnover. They wanted something faster, harder hitting.
So Myron, not being able to just grow coca or opium poppies, he had to get creative.
Extremely creative.
Yeah.
He initially played around with hallucinogens, trying to grow LSD or psilocybin derivatives, using Brahmin manure as fertilizer. Standard stuff, almost.
But the breakthrough wasn't the mushrooms themselves.
No. The horrifying eureka moment was realizing the potent high came from the fumes. The gas is rising off literal tons of Brahmin waste stewing in these huge fermentation vats.
Okay, but it wasn't just random manure fumes, right? There's a specific origin to the chemical compound.
Correct, that's the key detail. The actual psychoactive effect seems to originate from a contaminated pre-war protein extract.
Protein extract, like for food.
Yeah, meant for human consumption. But it got contaminated, ruined by some kind of resilient skin bacteria, rendered toxic, unusable.
So they should have just disposed of it.
They should have, but that would have meant taking a financial loss. So instead, the meat companies cynically decided to feed the contaminated protein to their Brahmin herds to recoup the costs.
Wow. A pre-war decision, purely about avoiding a minor financial write-off, selling tainted cow feed.
Becomes the trigger 2 centuries later for a devastating continent-wide drug epidemic. It's the ultimate twisted legacy of old world corporate cynicism.
So when the Brahmin ate this stuff,
the contaminated protein acted like a powerful amphetamine in their systems. And that specific amphetamine trace, after being processed through the Brahmin's digestion and then fermented in those manure vats, it produced the highly concentrated, potent fumes that Myron learned how to capture and synthesize into usable jet.
and the process of figuring this out, of developing it, it came at a huge human cost, didn't it? The Mordinos weren't exactly ethical employers.
Not even remotely. The initial testing, the first iterations of Myron's jet formula, they apparently claimed the lives of around 100 slaves.
100 people, just in testing.
Yeah. These weren't battle casualties. These were human test subjects dying from massive heart attacks, myocardial infarctions, or cerebral hemorrhages, strokes, or just prolonged, violent psychotic breaks.
It's horrific. 100 lives just to perfect the drug recipe.
And that immense cost, in terms of slave labor and lives, was just instantly absorbed by the Mordinos. They saw the potential profits. They saw jet not just as a drug, but as a weapon.
A weapon for economic control.
Exactly. Myron apparently delivered precisely what the boss, Big Jesus Mordino, wanted. A drug designed specifically to be highly addictive, combining psychological need with brutal chemical dependency.
And they aimed it squarely at Reading, right? The gold mining town.
That was the target. By getting the gold diggers hooked, the Mordinos gained de facto control over the entire town's economy. The miners had to constantly work, constantly dig, just to feed their jet habit, pouring their gold straight into Mordino pockets.
And this model, this idea of chemical enslavement, it didn't die with the Mordinos, did it?
Sadly, no. It became depressingly standard practice. Much later, we see the Omertas crime family in New Vegas doing the exact same thing, using free jet and also Med-Tek to hook and exploit their sex workers.
The sources actually call it slavery through a needle.
They do. It's blunt but accurate. And this cycle was protected by Myron's, well, dark ingenuity. He deliberately made his jet formula resistant to all the standard wasteland addiction cures.
Things like Addictyl, Fixer.
Yeah, those common nervous system suppressants. They just wouldn't work reliably on Myron's jet. The addiction, once it took hold, was designed to be permanent unless you found some very specialized, very rare countermeasure.
But there was a potential countermeasure discussed, wasn't there? An antidote concept.
There was. Someone with high intelligence, presumably the player character in Fallout 2, could suggest using endorphin blockers. The idea was to block the intense pleasure, the euphoria that jet provides. Take away the reward, take away the motivation to use.
And Myron's reaction.
He actually conceded it might work, at least to repress the chemical and psychological hooks. But he was arrogant about it, claimed his jet would eventually chew right through the blockers.
And this theoretical antidote, it wasn't a pleasant cure, was it?
No, the effect was described as violent, comparable to severe rad scorpion poisoning. But the key was, it would apparently prevent the drug from ever working again. If you took jet after the antidote, you'd just get immediately violently sick.
So even with the original formula working so well for them, the Mordinos kept tinkering, trying to make it better. That led to Jet Beta.
Right, Jet Beta was their attempt at a Jet 2.0. The goal was ambitious: replace the original entirely and massively increase the duration of the high from just a few minutes up to a full hour.
But it didn't work out.
It was plagued with problems, disastrous side effects during development, severe nasal bleeding, rampant hallucinations, more heart attacks. Development got halted before it really hit the streets, probably helped along by the discovery of that potential antidote.
Okay, so the Mordinas eventually faded, but the core jet formula, Myron's recipe, it got out. It was replicated, adapted, spread everywhere, leading to this whole family tree of derivatives.
A huge lineage, and some are fascinating examples of adaptation. Let's start with Ultrajet.
Ultrajet, this was made by Murphy, right? The ghoul chemist in the capital wasteland.
That's the one. Murphy noticed something crucial. Standard jet just didn't hit ghouls very hard. Their altered physiology, all that radiation resistance, it dampened the effect.
So he needed to make it stronger, specifically for ghouls. And his solution is another classic bit of wasteland chemistry.
Absolutely classic. He combined standard jet with pre-war sugar bomb cereal.
Sugar bombs, really?
Yep. And caustic cleaning chemicals.
Why those specific things? What's the thinking there?
Well, the sugar bombs likely provided a high-energy sugar base. Something to act as a carrier or maybe a multiplier for the active ingredients. And the caustic cleaning chemicals probably acted as a strong catalyst, something to help the mixture bypass or just overwhelm the ghoul's altered metabolism.
And the result, Ultrajet.
Double the potency of standard jet. Finally gave ghouls the same kind of rush humans got. Interestingly, the addiction rate for Ultrajet is apparently slightly lower than regular jet, but when a ghoul does get hooked on it...
It's probably much worse because of the sheer intensity.
Exactly. Much more severe chemical abuse involved.
Okay, so Ultrajet is about adapting for physiology. What about variants focused purely on combat speed, action points, things like rocket?
Rocket. Yeah, the recipe for that one just screams desperation and ingenuity. You mix jet, Nuka-Cola, and pre-war laundry detergent.
Laundry detergent, seriously.
Seriously. You're basically combining three chemical powerhouses. The stimulant base of jet, the high sugar caffeine rush of Nuka-Cola, and then whatever chemical accelerants or solvents are in that old world detergent.
And the effect is purely about action points.
A massive boost. Gives you an extra 30 maximum AP for a minute. That's a huge edge in VETS or any timed combat situation.
But the risk.
Higher addiction chance. 30% for rocket compared to regular jets, 20% more power, more risk. Seems to be a theme.
Definitely. Then there's turbo. This one sounds almost mythical. It actually slows down time.
Well, it creates the illusion of slow motion for the user.
Yeah.
Modifies their time perception, basically. Makes the world seem like it's moving through treacle while they operate at normal speed.
Okay, that's a serious advantage. What goes into turbo? The recipe must be complex.
It's maybe the most chemically ambitious of the bunch. Really shows a deep knowledge of neurotoxins and solvents. You need jet, obviously. Then an aerosol can.
Like hairspray or something.
Yeah, probably for the propellant or solvents.
Yeah.
Then Brock flour, turpentine, and the key ingredient, the poison gland from a cazador.
A cazador poison gland. Those things are terrifyingly fast and deadly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that poison gland likely acts as a highly specialized neuromodifier. It's probably what achieves that time distortion effect by seriously messing with the user's perception of speed and time.
Wow. Using toxic insect parts like that, it demonstrates a really high level of post-apocalyptic chemistry understanding, or maybe just recklessness.
Probably a bit of both.
Yeah.
We also see jet being combined with actual weapons-grade materials. Jet fuel.
Right, jet fuel, jet mixed with flamer fuel.
Exactly. And its main purpose isn't even biological enhancement for the user, it's utility. It enhances the duration of a jetpack.
So it provides a bigger, longer-lasting burst of combustion, integrating the stimulant idea into mechanical systems.
Yeah, it shows how these chems get woven into every aspect of wasteland life, even technology.
And before we leave jet, we should probably mention the low-mint versions, the gateway drugs almost, like Dixon's Jet and Freeside.
Good point. Dixon's Jet is the cheap stuff. Weaker effect only boosts AP by 10 instead of 30. But here's the kicker. It's more addictive.
How much more?
50% addiction chance, compared to 20 for regular jet.
So easier to get hooked, harder to get off, for less benefit.
Precisely. It shows that in the wasteland drug economy, high addiction rates often go hand in hand with low quality and high street availability. It's the stuff designed to hook new users quickly and keep them coming back for a cheap, dirty fix.
Okay. That's a pretty comprehensive look at jet and its horrifying legacy. Let's pivot now, moving away from pure speed and stimulants.
For its raw physical power and aggression.
Exactly. The military and athletic enhancement stack, dominated by two big names, Psycho and Buffout.
Ah, the classics. Let's start with Psycho, known on the street as Angry Juice, or sometimes the Big Red One.
And this one is definitely pre-war, right? Pure military origin.
Oh yeah. Developed by a research division of the U.S. Army. apparently under a General Constantine Chase. And it saw heavy use, especially during the Anchorage reclamation campaign against the Chinese. The final stages.
So it was designed explicitly for extreme combat. What was the military trying to achieve with it? What's the chemical mechanism?
He had this unique delivery system, mixed different strange military-grade chemicals right before you injected it. And the purpose was basically two things.
Okay.
First, a massive boost to damage resistance. Made the soldier physically much tougher, harder to kill. And second, it dampened higher brain function.
Dampened higher brain functions. That sounds
Yep.
bad. Counterintuitive for a soldier, maybe?
It was a tactical trade-off. The Army needed incredibly tough, durable shock troops, the kind you can use in human wave assaults. Soldiers are less likely to hesitate, less likely to feel fear, less bothered by self-preservation instincts.
So it made them fearless, but maybe
counter.
more aggressive.
Exactly. The dampening effect created these physically capable fighters who were also, as the sources explicitly note, highly uncontrollable, very aggressive.
There's that companion character who uses it, right? They describe the feeling.
Yeah, it describes feeling tough, jumpy, spitting blood, feeling intensely sick inside, but functionally invincible. That's Psycho.
Grim. Okay, what about the other half of this stack? Buffout. That sounds more like straightforward steroids.
It basically is. Buffout is the legacy of pre-war steroids. It was massively popular with professional athletes before the bombs, the go-to sports enhancement drug.
And its effects are purely physical.
Pretty much. Increases strength, boosts reflexes slightly, and bumps up your maximum health. Straightforward muscle juice.
There are warnings about it, though, right? In the lore.
Oh yeah. There's that terminal entry from a researcher who was experimenting with Buffout, trying to see if he could punch through steel plating.
How did that go for him?
It's not well. He ended up needing stim packs and had to type his log entries with his non-dominant hand because he presumably broke the other one. It really highlights that temporary, fleeting illusion of immense strength the drug provides. You feel powerful, but physics still applies.
Okay, so you have Psycho for aggression and toughness, Buffout for raw strength. But the real power comes when wasteland chemists start mixing these, right? Creating combat cocktails.
This is where you see the peak of battlefield chemical customization in the post-apocalypse. Combining these base drugs for specific extreme effects, the ultimate stack, tailored for different roles.
Let's break down the main combos. First up, Psycho Buff. Psycho plus Buffout.
Right, this is the brute force option. You get an extreme boost, a 25% increase in the damage you deal, plus massive temporary boost to your strength and endurance stats.
So who uses this? A heavy gunner? Someone in our armor, maybe?
Exactly. The chemical choice for the heavy hitter. The close quarters brawler who needs maximum damage output and the sheer durability to soak up enemy fire. You'd pop Psycho Buff right before breaching a heavily defended room, knowing you need to tank damage while dealing overwhelming force back.
Okay, brute force. What about speed and aggression? That's Psycho Jet, right? Psycho plus Jet.
Yep. Psycho Jet mixes Psycho's combat, boosts the damage resistance, the aggression with Jet's time-slowing effect.
So you hit harder, take more hits, and the world slows down for you.
For about 15 seconds, yeah. This is the drug for precision chaos. Imagine being cornered by multiple enemies or needing to take out several high-priority targets really fast. Psycho Jet gives you that superhuman reaction time from the Jet, combined with the raw toughness from Psycho to survive the engagement.
That sounds incredibly potent. Okay, what if you need brains and brawn, awareness plus toughness?
Then you're looking at Psychotats. That's Psycho mixed with Mentats.
And Mentats, the cognitive enhancer. How does that combo work?
It marries Psycho's damage resistance and aggressive edge with the heightened cognitive awareness from Mentats, so it boosts your perception stat and your damage resistance simultaneously.
Who needs that specific combo?
Think tactical commanders, maybe? Or snipers. People who need both the durability to survive incoming fire and the sharp senses to spot targets, assess threats quickly, maybe execute complex plans under pressure. Mentats also help suppress panic, which is useful.
Makes sense. Okay, one more major hybrid. Buff Jet. Buffout plus Jet.
Right. This one combines Buffout's pure physical boost, the strength, the health, the reflexes, with that time-slowing adrenaline rush from Jet.
So speed and strength, but maybe less focused on defense than Psycho Jet.
Exactly. If you're wading into a chaotic melee fight and you absolutely need to make sure your attacks land harder and faster than anyone else's, Buff Jet gives you that burst of raw physical power while slowing down the world around you for 15 seconds.
These aren't just random mixes then. They show a real nuanced understanding of chemical synergy, tailored specifically for the brutal realities of wasteland combat.
Absolutely. Each combo fills a specific tactical niche.
Okay, that detailed look at the battlefield chems brings us neatly to our third major category, moving away from combat.
Towards the mind, cognitive and utility enhancers.
And this is where we get into the realm of corporate conspiracy, dominated by one company and its signature product, Med-Tek and Mentats.
Mentats, the little chunky red pills. Hugely popular pre-war cognitive enhancer. Med-Tek made a fortune off them.
What did they actually do?
Increased memory, mental speed, boosted intelligence and perception stats. They were the go-to study drug for college kids, cramming for exams. Also apparently favored by beatniks and armchair philosophers, people who wanted that mental edge.
And there's that interesting note about long-term effects, especially on younger users.
That's right. The sources suggest that consistent use, particularly during adolescence when the brain is still developing, might have actually caused a permanent, noticeable increase in intelligence for some people.
A potential benefit. But was it intended?
Probably not the main goal. Mentats were also powerful enough, apparently, to temporarily slow down the severe mental degeneration caused by diseases like Alzheimer's, helped maintain lucidity.
But here comes the dark side, right? Like Jet, Mentats were addictive.
Highly addictive. And crucially, this wasn't an accident. It wasn't an unforeseen side effect. Med-Tek designed them that way. It was addiction by design.
Okay, let's dig into that. A corporate conspiracy to create addicts. How did Med-Tek pull that off and leverage it for profit?
It was a disturbingly clever closed-loop system. Med-Tek intentionally preceded areas with free Mentats to create future demand.
Preceded, like giving out free samples.
Exactly, but strategically. They specifically targeted school districts. Places like Shaw High School are mentioned. They apparently use figures like the principal, maybe even the school's library book return system, as ways to distribute free drugs directly to students.
Giving addictive drugs to kids, that's predatory.
It gets worse. To make them even more appealing to younger people, they developed and pushed enticing fruit-flavored varieties. Orange, grape, berry Mentats.
Flavored versions.
Yep, and they didn't just sell them. They gave them away as prizes. For example, at public places like the National Archives, you could complete a simple history quiz and win free samples of flavored Mentats.
So the goal was blatant. Get adolescents hooked on free, tasty chems, create the demand early.
Precisely. Because once the addiction took hold, those kids, those future adults, they needed two things from Med-Tek.
They needed more Mentats.
And they needed Med-Tek's cure for the addiction Med-Tek had caused, their own anti-addiction drug fixer.
Wow. Create the problem, sell the solution. It's the definition of a closed-loop profit machine built on dependency.
And the human cost, beyond the addiction itself, was significant. Even the temporary effects weren't harmless. Excessive use could cause severe migraines, intense irritability during withdrawal.
And potentially worsen or even trigger neurological disorders long term.
Yes. We see a potential tragic example of this in Dr. Mobius himself, his severe dementia, his paranoia. The lore strongly suggests it's linked to his prolonged, heavy abuse of both Mentats and Psycho over the years.
A cautionary tale. Okay, so beyond the standard Reb Mentats, those flavored variants Med-Tek pushed, they actually evolved, didn't they? They became specialized tools in the wasteland, moving beyond just cognitive enhancement.
They really did. Take great Mentats. These are interesting because they deviate completely from the original purpose.
How so?
They don't boost intelligence or perception at all. Great Mentats are purely a social drug. They give a big +5 boost to charisma and improve your barter prices by 10%.
A social lubricant, basically. Made from.
Crafted from standard Mentats, hub flour, and whiskey. The combination is explicitly designed to reduce social anxiety, boost confidence, help you pass tricky speech checks or negotiate better deals.
Okay, social skills. What about berry Mentats? They still boost intelligence, right?
Right.
But they gained a new trick.
A hugely important tactical trick, especially in later conflicts. Berry Mentats give you that +5 intelligence boost, yep. But their key feature now is that they highlight all living targets for 8 minutes.
Highlight targets, like through walls.
Through walls, through rock, through ceilings, doors. It even reveals hidden enemies or things tunneling underground like mole rats. It's essentially a chemical wall hack ability.
That's incredible for reconnaissance or clearing dangerous areas. What's the recipe?
Mentats, tarberry, and antifreeze.
Antifreeze. Okay, definitely don't try making these at home.
Please don't. Yeah, it turns a steady aid into an indispensable tactical tool for finding hidden threats.
And the last flavor. Orange Mentats.
Orange Mentats ditch the intelligence boost entirely. They focus purely on perception, giving a +5 bonus. Heightened awareness, sensory acuity.
And they have a combat application too.
Yep. They boost your accuracy in VATS by 10%, grafted with Mentats, carrot, and silt bean. This is the precision drug. For the sharpshooter, the scout, making sure your shots count and you spot danger first.
Okay. Before we move into the really weird stuff, we need to quickly touch on Med-X. It's everywhere, often mistaken for a combat drug, but it's really just a utility item, right?
Exactly. Med-X is just a potent pre-war painkiller. You find it all over hospitals, first aid kits. Its main effect is boosting damage resistance by 25%.
Yeah.
Makes you tougher by dulling pain.
And Med-X has that interesting history with censorship, doesn't it? It wasn't always called Med-X.
That's right, a fascinating little footnote. In the early design stages of Fallout 3, it was actually called morphine.
But using a real-world drug name caused problems.
Big problems. Specifically with the Australian Classification Board. They refused to classify the game, effectively banning it, because it referenced real-world addictive drugs like morphine.
So Bethesda had to change it globally.
Yep. They renamed it Med-X everywhere to comply. But if you dig into the game files, the internal editor ID for the item is still morphine, and the addiction effect is called withdrawal morphine, like a little digital ghost of the original name.
And it's dangerous stuff on its own, right? Overdose is possible.
Very possible. The sources suggest that taking about 5 doses could potentially be fatal, and hitting 15 doses basically guarantees a lethal overdose. It's potent medicine, not candy.
Right. Okay, now we plunge into the truly weird and wild side of the wasteland pharmacopoeia. The biological stuff, the natural chems, the hyper-specialized niche drugs.
Starting with stuff derived directly from the delightful mutated wildlife. Ant nectar.
Produced by giant ants, and it comes in different flavors depending on the ant.
3 distinct variants, yeah. Each seems optimized for something totally different. The standard, regular ant nectar you get from, well, regular giant ants, that's a pure brute force chem.
What does it do?
Gives you an exceptional boost to strength, like really big. But the trade-off is harsh. It significantly lowers your intelligence and charisma, turns you into a temporary, powerful idiot, basically, and it's highly addictive.
Okay, strong but dumb. What about fire ant nectar from the spicier ants?
This one's really interesting chemically. Secreted by the irradiated fire ants, this version gives a big agility boost +4 and grants 25% fire resistance, makes you faster and harder to burn. Still lowers your intelligence a lot, though.
But the key difference.
The crucial distinction. Fire ant nectar is explicitly listed in the sources as non-addictive.
Really? Why? Same source, basically, just a different ant variant.
We can only speculate. Maybe the specific radiation exposure or the unique venom components in the fire ants create a protein structure that delivers the agility boost without triggering the same addictive pathways in the brain as the regular nectar. It's a biological quirk.
Fascinating. And the third type, ant queen pheromones. That sounds different.
It is. This is described as a strong natural aphrodisiac. It greatly raises your charisma, presumably by affecting how others perceive you, but it comes at the cost of lowering your intelligence and perception. Makes you charming, but maybe a bit oblivious.
An aphrodisiac chem, does that trope show up elsewhere?
Interestingly, yeah, it's very similar in concept and effect to the Telvanni bug musk perfume from the Elder Scrolls III, Morrowind. Another Bethesda game, another charisma-boosting secretion from a giant insect. Seems to be a recurring idea they like.
Shows a continuity of weird ideas across their universes. Okay, moving from ants to specialized combat aids. Let's talk about Steady, the marksman's best friend.
Steady is terrifyingly effective because its mechanism is so precise. It drastically increases your accuracy with ranged weapons by completely eliminating weapon spread. Sets the spread value to 0.0.
Zero spread. So every shot goes exactly where you aim, regardless of weapon condition or your own skill.
Within the weapon's effective range, pretty much. For VATS users, it virtually guarantees a 95% hit chance if the target isn't miles away. It basically removes human error and weapon imperfection from the equation for a short time. Perfect accuracy.
That kind of power has to come with a massive downside.
Right, it does. To balance how incredibly powerful it is, Steady has the single highest base addiction rate of any chem in the games.
How high?
80%. An 80% chance of getting hooked every time you use it. Rely on it even a few times and addiction is almost guaranteed. You're trading immediate survival in a firefight for almost certain long-term dependency.
That's a brutal trade-off. Okay, next up. Something specialized for healing. Hydra. Named after the mythical beast.
The one whose heads grew back, yeah. And that's exactly what Hydra does, but for limbs. Its function is incredibly vital, especially if you're playing in hardcore mode.
Why hardcore specifically?
Because in hardcore mode, Standard stim packs or just sleeping don't fix crippled limbs. A broken leg stays broken unless you find a doctor or use something specific. And that's where Hydra comes in.
What does it do?
It heals crippled limbs over time, restores 10 points of limb condition per second for 60 seconds. In a world where a crippled leg can easily mean death by super mutants or death claws, Hydra is a lifesaver.
And the look of it, the packaging, is another classic wasteland invention.
Totally cobbled together. It's described as a soupy-yum soda bottle, but with sealed glass vials of liquid taped around the outside and little tubes feeding the contents up into the bottle's mouth.
And the ingredients. More delightful wasteland critters.
Oh yes. Crafted using cave fungus, red scorpion poison gland, and night stalker blood. A perfect little cocktail of natural, highly toxic horrors, somehow combined into a potent regenerative agent. Pure desperation chemistry.
We're seeing a pattern here. Okay, what about plant-based alternatives? Things like coyote tobacco chew.
Right, harvested from the actual coyote tobacco plant found growing wild. This is more of a mild, natural stimulant.
What are the effects?
Boosts perception and agility slightly. But its real niche use is in hardcore mode again.
Yeah.
It drastically reduces your sleepiness meter, makes it invaluable for long treks across the Mojave without needing to stop and rest constantly.
Less destructive than something like Jet, presumably.
Yeah, much milder. Carries only a 10% risk of standard tobacco addiction. More sustainable stimulant, if you can call it that.
Okay, let's touch on a couple of the really obscure ones now. Regional stuff or things that maybe didn't make it into the main games. Voodoo.
Voodoo shows up in Fallout Tactics, the more combat-focused spin-off. It's described as a tribal concoction, made from the leftover byproducts of various critters. Very vague, very tribal.
And the effect.
Gives this immediate, powerful sense of invincibility. Boosts agility, luck, damage resistance, and critical chance all at once for a full hour. It's like a holistic combat super boost, reflecting maybe some kind of tribal knowledge of mixing different organic compounds for a synergistic effect.
Interesting, and reaching way back into the lore of the canceled game Van Buren, there's a chem called Smooch.
Smooch, yeah, from the Van Buren design documents. It was described as a greasy green goo that provided extreme mellowness, intense ecstasy, like a super relaxant.
But the really noteworthy thing about Smooch
Was its effect on ghouls. Despite apparently tasting horrid, Smooch had the exact same potent effect on ghouls as it did on baseline humans.
which is unusual, right? We talked about Jet being less effective on ghouls.
Exactly.
Right.
It suggests Smooch had this really unique chemical composition, something that managed to bypass the ghoul's altered physiology, or maybe reactivate certain neurochemical pathways that other drugs couldn't reach. A potential chemical marvel lost to time when Van Buren was canceled.
Wow. Okay. We've covered a huge spectrum here. Corporate stimulants, military steroids, tribal aphrodisiacs made from ants, time-slowing cocktails. What's the big picture? What's the synthesis we take away from this whole wasteland pharmacopoeia?
Well, I think we've seen three major chemical dynasties at work, right?
Go on.
First, you have the Jet family, these toxic, economically dominant stimulants, born from this really grotesque ingenuity, turning Brahmin waste into wealth and, frankly, slavery, driving the criminal underworld.
Okay, Dynasty 1, the stimulants.
Second, you've got the Psycho and Buffett family, the high-risk, high-reward military and athletic boosters. Stuff engineered pre-war for human wave assaults for pushing the body to its absolute physical limits. Damn the consequences.
Dynasty 2, the combat enhancers.
And third, the Mentats line, along with things like Med-Tek. These are the pre-war, often commercially sinister cognitive and utility drugs, where addiction wasn't just a side effect, it was sometimes intentionally baked into the product design by corporations like Med-Tek, purely to maximize profits.
Dynasty 3, the corporate and utility drugs, and the thread running through all of them.
I think it's desperation and just terrifying resourcefulness, whether it's Myron figuring out how to weaponize contaminated cow feed, or some anonymous wasteland chemist mixing weaponized flamer fuel with Nuka-Cola and detergent to make rocket. Survival demands innovation.
They're taking the literal garbage of the old world, the detergents, the ruined food additives, the surplus military toxins, and combining them with the mutated horrors of the new world to create entirely new tools for performance.
It's this really dark mirror, isn't it? Chems are absolutely essential tools for survival out there. They offer that fleeting edge against a brutal, random environment where death is always close.
But at the same time,
They are also the most potent tools for enslavement and control we see in the wasteland. They demonstrate again and again that the relentless pursuit of enhanced performance, whether it's physical power or mental acuity, it almost invariably comes with severe costs. both personal, crippling addiction and societal costs, like the Mordinos controlling Reading. And it doesn't seem to matter who's making the dose.
Which leads us perfectly to our final thought for you, the listener, to chew on as you navigate the wastes. We saw Med-Tek, this massive pre-war corporation closely tied to the government. We saw them intentionally engineer addiction, targeting kids in schools, all to boost profits and create a captive market for their cure, Fixer.
A calculated, cynical corporate strategy.
Then, after the bombs fall, all that regulatory oversight vanishes. What happens? Criminal groups, the Khans, the Mordinos, the Omertas, they adopt the exact same strategy, using chemical dependency, weaponized addiction, purely for control and enslavement. So, when the end result is the same pervasive, devastating cycle of addiction scarring the wasteland, does the original source of the drug truly matter? Is the pre-war corporation any different functionally from the post-war crime lord or the opportunistic chem cooking genius if the outcome for the user, for society, is ultimately the same?